Do you ever feel like you've given so much of yourself to people who don't appreciate it? You've poured your energy into relationships, friendships, or situations, but in return, you receive nothing. And one day you decide that enough is enough. You simply disappear. No warning, no explanation, just gone. But here's the thing, when you make that decision, something powerful happens. Not just to you, but to the people you leave behind. In this speech, we'll explore 11 things people feel when you disappear. This isn't just about leaving someone behind, it's about showing them your power, teaching them a lesson, and reclaiming control of your life. When you vanish, you force others to confront their own actions and understand the consequences of taking someone for granted. So, let's dive into these 11 things they feel when you simply disappear. Brace yourself, because what you're about to learn could change the way you approach your relationships in your life. You see, when you make the decision to disappear, to walk away from people who have taken you for granted, they don't realize the weight of that loss at first. But when it hits them, when they finally understand that you're gone, that they no longer have access to your energy, your presence, and your love, it's a shock. It's a realization that cuts deep. They thought they could get by without you. They thought your loyalty, your patience, your kindness were just givens, like you'd always be there. But let me tell you, when you walk away, that's when they feel it. That's when they truly understand what they've lost. It's not immediate. At first, there's this confusion. You disappear and they might think it's temporary. They might assume you'll come back, that you'll return to the same patterns. After all, that's what people do, right? They take and take. But when the time comes for them to appreciate, they hold back. And then, when you leave, it's almost like they don't know how to handle it. But let me tell you something. That confusion soon morphs into something much more painful. It becomes regret. It becomes a gnawing sense of loss. Because what they start to realize is that they had something good, something irreplaceable, and they never took the time to appreciate it. The thing is, when you're there, day in and day out, putting in the work, giving everything you have, they don't always notice. They don't realize how much of your heart you've put into it, how much of your soul you've invested. They just take it for granted. They get used to your presence, they assume it'll always be there, always available, and then bam, you disappear. And then, it's not just about losing a person, it's about losing a piece of themselves. They realize that you were the anchor they didn't even know they needed. You were the one who kept them grounded when everything else felt like it was falling apart. And that realization doesn't come easy. It's uncomfortable. It makes them question everything. How did I not see this coming? How did I take them for granted? How could I not realize what I had in front of me? That's the moment they start to feel it. That's when the absence becomes louder than your presence ever was. Because when you were there, they didn't value you. But when you leave, everything shifts. Your absence becomes a void, a gap they can't fill. Let me tell you something, people only truly understand the worth of something when they lose it. And your disappearance is a wake-up call, a lesson they can't ignore. You were always there, always giving, always showing up. But they didn't see it. They didn't appreciate it until it was too late. And that's the power of disappearing. When you remove yourself from their lives, you force them to confront the truth. They're left to pick up the pieces, to face the reality of their own actions, and to reckon with the fact that they didn't know what they had until it was gone. And let me tell you, that kind of realization doesn't happen overnight. It's not something that's easily shaken off. They'll try to move on. They'll try to find someone else to fill the void you've left. But it won't be the same. They can't replace you. The value you brought to their life was irreplaceable. And as they go through their days, they'll be reminded over and over again of what they've lost. Your absence will echo in their life in ways they never expected. It'll be a constant reminder of what happens when you don't appreciate the people who show up for you, who love you, who care for you, who stay when the world wants to walk away. And that's the lesson they need to learn. Your absence will force them to look at themselves, to ask the hard questions, and to reflect on what they've taken for granted. It's uncomfortable, it's painful, but it's the truth. And sometimes, that's the only way to make someone truly understand what you meant to them, to make them feel that loss so deeply that it changes them forever. So when you disappear, remember this, you're not just walking away from them, you're teaching them a lesson. You're showing them the value of what they had. You're giving them a wake-up call that will stay with them long after you're gone. When you disappear, when you step away from those who've taken you for granted, what's the first thing they do? They start to question themselves. They start to wonder, what did I do wrong? Was I not good enough? Did I push them away? Was I too much? The self-doubt creeps in, and it doesn't stop. It eats away at them, pulling them down, making them question their worth, their value. You see, when you're around, they take your presence for granted. They think you'll always be there, that you'll always show up for them, that they don't have to do anything to earn your loyalty. But when you walk away, when you disappear, it forces them to turn the mirror on themselves. They see the void you've left and the emptiness in their own actions. They begin to ask themselves the hard questions. They wonder if it was something they did or didn't do. They wonder if they were too selfish, too wrapped up in their own world to notice your needs, your feelings, your sacrifices. It's a painful process for them. Self-doubt is a tough thing to deal with because it makes you question everything about yourself. It makes you feel like you're not enough, like you're constantly failing, like you're somehow lacking. And that's the exact feeling they're going to face when you disappear. They're going to be forced to reckon with their behavior, with the way they've treated you, and with the way they've treated everyone else around them. It's easy to ignore the little things, to take people for granted, to act like they'll always be there. But when you leave, that self-doubt sets in. It doesn't leave them for days, for weeks, for months. It haunts them. They replay every moment in their head. They go over every word they said, every action they took, every time they could have done better but didn't. And that self-doubt becomes louder than the voices of reason. It becomes overwhelming, a constant reminder that they've messed up. They feel like they're the ones to blame. They're the ones who failed. And here's the kicker: they won't be able to understand why it took you leaving to make them see it. Why didn't they realize it earlier? Why didn't they take better care of the people who loved them? Why did they wait until you were gone to realize that they had been neglecting someone who gave them everything? That's the burden they'll carry. The burden of knowing they failed to recognize what was right in front of them. And let me tell you something, self-doubt is a powerful thing. It doesn't just make you question your actions, it makes you question your entire character. It makes you wonder if you're a good person, a worthy person, a person who deserves to be loved and appreciated. So when they start feeling this self-doubt, when they start wondering if they're the problem, they'll be left to confront the uncomfortable truth they took you for granted. And that truth, my friend, is not easy to face. It's uncomfortable. It shakes them to their core because deep down they know it's their fault. They know they didn't give you the respect you deserved. They didn't give you the attention, the gratitude, or the love you needed. And now they're left with the fallout. But you know what? It's a lesson they need to learn. Sometimes people won't change until they feel the consequences of their actions. Sometimes they need to experience the pain of losing someone to truly understand how much that person meant to them. And this self-doubt, this overwhelming feeling of I messed up, is the beginning of that transformation. It's the start of them realizing that maybe they have room to grow, room to improve, room to become a better person. But it won't happen overnight. No, this is a process. And it's going to hurt. But in the end, if they truly learn from it, if they're willing to face the truth about themselves, it could change the way they treat others in the future. It could change the way they value the people who show up for them, who love them, who give them their time and energy. So when you disappear, when you take that step back and let them sit with their own mistakes, know this: you're not just disappearing from their life. You're making them face their demons. You're making them confront the ugly truth about themselves, the truth they never wanted to admit. And it's in that confrontation, in that painful process of self-doubt, that they'll start to grow. That's when they'll understand what they had in you. That's when they'll start to understand what they lost. When you make the decision to leave, when you walk away, what they're left with is regret. It's not immediate. Oh no, at first, they might be caught up in their own world, thinking you'll come back, that you'll return to the same routine. They'll push those thoughts of you out of their mind because they never truly appreciated what you brought to the table. They never realized the effort, the love, the time you invested into them until they didn't have it anymore. And let me tell you something, regret is a powerful feeling. It eats away at you. It starts off small, a little whisper in the back of their mind. Maybe I should have called more, maybe I should have listened when they needed me. But it doesn't stay small, it grows. It becomes louder and louder until they can't escape it. They'll start to think about all the times they could have been better, all the moments they missed. Every time they took you for granted, every time they didn't show you the appreciation you deserved, it comes rushing back to them. They'll regret not making more time for you, not being there when you needed them the most, not giving you the respect you so rightfully earned. They'll think about the words they said and the ones they didn't say. They'll think about how they should have been kinder, more patient, more understanding, how they should have fought for the relationship, not let it fade away. They'll regret all the times they ignored your needs, all the times they expected you to keep giving without ever asking if you were okay, if you were tired, if you needed something in return. And that regret will haunt them. It'll be there every single day. Because when you disappear, when you step away, it's like a mirror that forces them to look at their own actions, their own behavior. And they'll see themselves for what they truly are, the one who didn't give enough, the one who didn't appreciate what they had until it was gone. And the worst part? They'll never be able to take back the time they lost with you. They'll never be able to go back and change the way they treated you. They'll never be able to undo the damage they did. That's the heavy burden they have to carry, the knowledge that they let something precious slip through their fingers. They didn't fight for it when they had the chance. They didn't value it, didn't treasure it, and now it's gone. And now, there's no way to make up for it. Regret has this way of making you feel like you're running out of time, like you've missed your shot, and now it's too late. And for them, it'll be too late to fix things with you. They'll try. They'll reach out, they'll apologize, they'll try to do things differently, but it won't matter. The damage is done. The hurt is real. And once you've made up your mind to leave, once you've walked away, it's no longer about them. It's about you. And that's something they'll have to come to terms with. They'll have to live with the regret that they didn't appreciate what they had when they had it. And that regret will stick with them for a long time. It'll be the thing that nags at them in quiet moments. The thing that lingers in their mind when they're alone. And every time they think about you, they'll be reminded of all the mistakes they made. They'll wish they could go back and change things, but they can't. And that, my friend, is a hard pill to swallow. It's the kind of regret that stays with you, that follows you wherever you go. It doesn't matter how much time passes or how many other relationships they have in the future. Nothing will ever fill the hole you've left behind. And while they may try to convince themselves that it's just another chapter in their life, deep down, they'll always know that the chapter they lost was the one that mattered the most. The chapter where they had you. And they'll regret not fighting harder to keep you. When you disappear from someone's life, you leave a hole. A void that they can't ignore, no matter how hard they try. You see, the thing is, they didn't recognize your value when you were there. They took your presence for granted, assumed you'd always be available, always be the person to show up, always be the person to love them unconditionally. But now, when you're gone, that absence is deafening. It's loud. It's a constant reminder of their mistakes. They feel it every day, every hour, every minute, and no matter how much they try to fill it, they can't. This is the hardest thing for them to admit. They never realized what they had until it was gone. You were there, putting in the work, doing the small things that mattered, offering support, offering love, offering your time. And they didn't appreciate it. But now, with you no longer in the picture, they see the difference. They see the weight of their actions. The absence of your laughter, the absence of your voice, the absence of your presence in their life, it's something they can't escape. It's like a shadow that follows them, reminding them that they messed up, that they didn't realize the treasure they had in front of them until it was too late. They begin to understand, slowly, painfully, that they lost someone who had their back, someone who was there for them through thick and thin, someone who was willing to sacrifice their own time, their own energy, their own emotions just to make sure they were okay. And now, all that remains is the echo of what was. They begin to see how much you did for them, how much you gave, and how little they gave in return. And that realization stings. It cuts deep because at the end of the day, they know that they can't replace you. No matter who they turn to, no matter what they do, no one will ever fill that space, that void you've left behind. But here's the thing, this realization isn't just about the loss. It's about the truth they have to face. They took you for granted. They thought you'd always be there, that you'd always put up with their mistakes, their shortcomings, their failures. They thought you would always forgive them, always understand. But when you walk away, when you leave, it forces them to face the ugly truth that they didn't value what they had until it was gone. And that's a truth they can't escape. It's not something they can shove aside or ignore. It's a reality they'll have to live with. The question is, can they change? Can they learn from their mistakes? And that's the power of your absence. When you disappear, when you step back from the situation, it's not just about you removing yourself from their lives. It's about forcing them to face the consequences of their actions. They have to sit with the discomfort, with the guilt, with the pain of knowing that they didn't appreciate you, that they didn't give you the love and respect you deserved. And for some, that's a turning point. For others, it's just a painful memory they'll carry with them, but it doesn't matter. What matters is that you gave them a lesson they'll never forget. Your absence will stay with them. It will linger in their minds and their hearts, because they know that what they had in you was irreplaceable. You were more than just someone in their life. You were someone who helped them grow, who pushed them when they didn't think they could go any further, who believed in them when no one else did. You made them feel seen. You made them feel like they mattered. But when you leave, they'll realize that no one else can do that for them. They'll realize that they took someone special and threw it all away. They'll feel the weight of that, the weight of not appreciating someone who gave everything they had. And that realization is going to stick with them, whether they admit it or not. You taught them something about loyalty, about love, about respect, and they'll remember that every single day after you're gone. The emptiness they feel, the longing they experience, is a constant reminder of the mistake they made, and no matter how many times they try to fill that void, they'll never find anything that can replace the space you once occupied in their life. When you leave, when you step away from someone who never truly appreciated you, what they feel next is confusion. And it's a powerful confusion because they're not just confused about you, they're confused about themselves. They're confused about what went wrong. They start to question everything. They start looking at their actions, their words, their behavior, and it all begins to feel like a blur. They wonder where they went wrong. What could they have done differently? Why didn't they see the warning signs? Why didn't they realize the value of what you brought to the table when you were still there? It's like a mirror being held up to their face, forcing them to see the ugly truth about themselves. And that truth is not easy to face. You see, they weren't paying attention when you were right in front of them. They didn't recognize the sacrifices you were making, the way you kept showing up even when you were the one who needed support. They took you for granted, thinking you'd always be there, thinking they could treat you however they wanted, thinking that your love, your care, your loyalty were things they didn't have to earn. But when you leave, when you remove yourself from the situation, they're left holding the pieces of something they didn't know how to appreciate until it was too late. And it confuses them, because now they're left with the silence of your absence. And that silence is louder than any argument, any fight, any misunderstanding that happened between you. They're left with nothing but the echo of your absence and the overwhelming confusion about how they got to this point. They thought you would always be there. They thought they could keep treating you the way they did, keep taking you for granted, keep letting you do all the heavy lifting in the relationship. But now that you're gone, they're forced to reckon with the reality of their actions. And it hits them hard. They're confused because they didn't see it coming. They didn't understand what they had until it was no longer in front of them. The confusion becomes overwhelming. They ask themselves questions they don't have the answers to. Why did they push you away? Why did they neglect you? Why didn't they listen when you told them what you needed? Why didn't they step up when you were asking for more? And that confusion eats away at them because they know deep down that they messed up. They know that they could have done better. They know that they had the opportunity to treat you the way you deserved, to love you the way you deserved, to be there for you when you needed it the most. But instead, they took you for granted. And now, all they're left with is a storm of questions, of self-doubt, of regret, and most of all, confusion. And here's the kicker. It's not just confusion about you. It's confusion about themselves. They start to question their own character. They start to wonder if they're the type of person who doesn't know how to recognize true value, the type of person who can't appreciate the good things they have until they're gone. They start to wonder if they're the type of person who pushes people away, who isolates themselves from the very people who would fight for them. They start to wonder if they're the reason things fell apart, if they're the reason you walked away. And that confusion, that internal struggle, is something they have to live with. It becomes a weight on their chest, a burden they can't shake, because it forces them to confront their own flaws, their own shortcomings. And here's the truth: they're never going to fully understand what they had until it's gone. They're never going to understand the depth of your love, the strength of your commitment, the loyalty you showed, until they've had to face the consequences of their actions. They'll try to rationalize it. They'll try to tell themselves that maybe it wasn't that important, that maybe they didn't need you as much as they thought. But deep down, they'll know. They'll know that the void you've left behind is something they can never fill, something they can never undo. And that confusion, that overwhelming feeling of being lost, will stay with them, because they'll know they lost something real, something irreplaceable, and they'll never be able to go back and change it. So when you disappear, when you walk away, you leave them in a state of confusion, questioning everything they thought they knew about themselves, about you, and about the relationship. It forces them to face the fact that they didn't value what they had until it was gone. And it's that confusion, that mental and emotional turmoil, that will stick with them long after you've moved on. When you disappear from someone's life, they're left with the feeling of desperation. It's not just that they miss you, it's that they realize with stark clarity that they need you. They've never truly understood the depth of your presence until it's no longer there. And that realization shakes them to their core. See, people often think they can survive without certain things, without certain people. They think that they can go on, that life will continue without disruption. But the truth is, when you're in their life, when you're offering your time, your energy, your love, you become essential to their well-being. You become a foundation, a pillar of support they didn't even know they relied on until you're gone. And that's when the desperation begins to creep in. They start scrambling, searching for something to fill the hole you've left. They look for distractions, they look for people. They look for anything that will take their mind off the fact that you're no longer there. They start reaching out to others, trying to find some sort of comfort. But it's never the same. It's like trying to fill a glass with water when the glass has a hole in the bottom. No matter how much they pour in, it's never going to hold. They can't replace what you gave them, what you represented, what you brought to their life. The desperation grows as they realize that the connection you had, the bond you shared, cannot be replicated. It's irreplaceable. And they're left chasing something that doesn't exist. And they try. They try to reach out, to pull you back in, to make you return. They'll send texts, make calls, do whatever it takes to get your attention, to remind you of the times you spent together, to bring you back to a place where they felt safe. But what they don't realize is that the desperation they feel, the sense of urgency they now have, is a reflection of their own failure. It's a reflection of how they didn't value you when you were there. It's a wake-up call that comes too late. You gave them your love, your patience, your support, and they didn't recognize it. They didn't see it as something they needed until you walked away. And now, they're scrambling to fix something they can't undo. They feel helpless because they know they messed up. They know they took you for granted. And no matter how many apologies they offer, no matter how many attempts they make to win you back, it's not going to change what's already been done. What's worse is the fact that they now have to face themselves. They have to live with the knowledge that they let something slip away. They let something real, something valuable, just slip right through their fingers. And that realization is suffocating. It's as though every breath they take is filled with the weight of their own mistakes, the weight of their own neglect. They realize that the desperation they feel is not just about wanting you back, it's about needing you back. And that need is a heavy burden to carry. Because deep down, they know they can't fix what they broke. They can't undo the damage they caused. They can't take back the time they wasted or the words they said that drove you away. And it stings. It stings in a way that nothing else does. Because no matter how much they try to make things right, no matter how many apologies they offer, it won't change the fact that they didn't appreciate you when they had you. They'll start to second guess every decision they made, every moment they took you for granted. They'll ask themselves why they didn't treat you better, why they didn't show you the love and respect you deserved. But the truth is, it's too late for that. The desperation they feel is a consequence of their actions, a consequence of their failure to recognize your worth until it was gone. And as much as they want to turn back time, as much as they want to undo the damage, they can't. And that's what makes the desperation so unbearable. It's the knowledge that no matter how hard they try, they can't go back to a time when you were there. So they'll be left with this feeling, this intense, gnawing feeling of desperation that lingers. It's a feeling that won't go away, no matter how much time passes or how many people they turn to for comfort. It's a feeling that will follow them, remind them of what they lost, and no amount of searching will bring it back. By simply disappearing, you give people a chance to grow, to reflect, and to truly understand the importance of valuing the people in their lives. It's not about revenge, it's about teaching them a lesson that they will carry with them for the rest of their lives. So when the time comes, don't be afraid to disappear if it means reclaiming your power and your peace.